Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We're really excited about this roundtable in VR because we're going to be doing the second half of it actually in VR. And what we'll do first is share my. Let's see here. I will share my screen, my slides, like this. Everyone see my slides? Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Excellent. So, welcome again. What we're going to be doing today is meeting with Bill Ballo, and that the topic of today's roundtable in VR is exploring EMS and paramedic education in VR. So we're going to start the first half of the discussion with Bill in Zoom and myself in Zoom as well. And we'll learn a little bit more about how he's using Acadicus to build his foundational education programs and 3D lectures in anatomy, but also his interest and development work, staging complex multi-casualty, multi-department, multidisciplinary casualty training in multi-user VR environments. I think that's particularly exciting. So we'll go over the sort of conventional type of foundational education programs that you probably have heard of in VR in general, but then I think this really mind-blowing stuff where we have the potential to create um, these larger scale multi-user training simulations. And these slides are also going to be available. They're online, and we'll post the link at the end of the recording. But Bill's also giving a couple presentations coming up. I wanted to highlight those on February 9th as part of this long virtual conference that's spanning from February 1st to February 12th, transforming the teaching and learning environment. You can register on Eventbrite, but Bill's presentation is on February 9th. At 1 p.m. And Bill's actually also going to be speaking and presenting at the Serious Play Conference. That's not until June, so it's a little bit further out. But talking about his work with virtual labs, simulation, and higher education training. So we're very excited about, we'll get to see more of Bill's awesome work. And the folks who are on the call right now, us panelists, we have Bill Ballo, who is the EMS and paramedic instructor and professor at the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning at Madison College. John Bruchot is the CEO of Arch Virtual, developing the Acadicus virtual reality platform. And I'm John Lester. My nickname is Pathfinder. You've probably seen me as Pathfinder if you follow me on Twitter. I've been using that handle for a long time. That's where I get my nickname. It also makes it easy to differentiate between the two Johns. So I respond to either John or Pathfinder. And my role at Acadicus is the Director of Community and Business Development. So I really focus a lot on figuring out ways to help not just our customers achieve their immediate goals, but also build a larger community of people using VR, sharing best practices, and finding collaborative opportunities to work with each other. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. We have an online community that we encourage everyone to join and participate. So this is just, I'm going to set the stage a little bit first with just to show you some screenshots. Then we'll jump back to Zoom, where you'll actually be able to see our faces and we'll be talking, but we'll be doing a roundtable discussion. But just to set the scene, what is Acadicus if you're not familiar with it? It is a 3D simulation program. It's basically your simulation lab in the virtual environment, which means you can see here, this is a screenshot of the virtual environment. And it is, we strive, one of our main goals is to strive for realism. So very high fidelity recreations of what you would see in in the physical world. And here you can see down to the level of, the medical equipment, that GE machine here is a real world machine. We actually worked with GE to build that to their specifications. And but the fascinating thing about these environments is that they are also full of people in these environments, right? Of real people who then come into the environments and are able to interact with the environments and interact with each other in the environments. And so here you have an example of Bill gets around. He does a lot of different things in VR. So he does, this anatomy training. You can see at the bottom here where he's working with different models in VR with his students, and you'll get to see this live in a short while. Here you can see he's responding to somebody who collapsed in their house. And here you can actually also see Bill is outside. It's a little hard to see, but somebody fell and is lying on the ground. And you can see there's some, emergency responder vehicles here. And you can see this is Bill working through a different simulation. So very different environments, right? It's not just, it's a recreation of an ER or a patient's room. It's any environment that you can imagine. The Acadicus platform has that flexibility. It doesn't even have to be a room. It could be a street corner, as in that situation over there. But of course, you have in VR, you have this ability to do things you can't do in the physical world. You have this, scaled up heart, which is actually beating, and you'll get to see that in a moment live, which is it's really awesome. And you actually also have, here's a closer example of responding to somebody. And this is what's going to happen shortly. What we're going to do is this is actually taken from a test that we did of the Zoom call. You can see John is over here. He is logged in desktop mode, in non-VR mode on his computer, sharing his screen in Zoom. And meanwhile, Bill and I are in VR. So John can talk to Bill and myself, and Bill and I are interacting with each other. And John can also relay questions from people in the Zoom call. So you'll be able to ask Bill and myself questions while we're in VR, while you're watching us explore different scenarios in VR. And just to give you a little sense of the different types of representations of people in this environment, I like this slide because it really sums it all up. So on the left here, you can see a live user in non-VR mode. This is allowing people to log into these environments and interact with these environments and interact with people in these environments without having any VR hardware. So this is just somebody logged in on a desktop, running a program on their desktop, no additional hardware required. And this is how they appear in the environment. You can see, for example, they don't have any hands because, well, you're not in VR, you're not using hand tracking technology, but you can see where they're looking. You can see, where their attention is being focused. Here's an example of John in VR mode, and you can see his, there's a representation in real time of the head and the hands and the fingers as they move. And over here, this is an example of recording. One of the features that we have is the ability to record everything that happens in the environment and have other people be able to play those recordings. We call them 3D recordings, play them back when they come into this environment. So this is a very, very powerful teaching tool. And I know this is something that Bill will speak about as well. But, you get to see exactly, in this case, Dr. Nick Slayman here was, how he was placing different leads, and it was just a recording being played back of him. So imagine, it's like a Star Trek holodeck, and you're playing back a recording of something that happened in that environment. Very powerful way to leverage instructors' expertise and their ability to train people. They just can make a recording that students can play back whenever they want to. And the technique for making the recording is literally as simple as just hitting one button on your user interface. It doesn't require any special software or additional software. You just log into Acadicus and say, I want to record everything that happens in this room right now. And we're actually going to be recording while we're in VR. We're going to be recording everything that we're doing today in VR. So not only will you be able to watch a video of us, of a recording of this webinar, of this roundtable, but you'll also be able to, and you can log into Acadicus for free. You can log in and you'll be able to play back the recording of myself and Bill and John in Acadicus. So it'll be like you were there. It's pretty amazing. One other thing I'll show you is, here's an example of someone who fell off of a scaffolding. I don't know, John. Look, John's very happy. It's a serious situation. We should have. It's not a happy time, but no one was hurt. No one was hurt in the making of this. Don't worry. But one thing I wanted to show about this is that you often have, here's an example of us in live in VR mode. But here are mannequins, or in gaming parlance, you call them non-player characters or NPCs. So when you're running a simulation manager, where you're basically puppeteering, the vital signs on a patient, or you're changing aspects of the mannequin as you would in your physical simulation lab, you could do that in this environment too, and you could have more than one. You could be changing the reactions of these people. You could cause some event to happen to these people over here. These are just mannequins or non-player characters. And when we log in, this is what we're going to start out here. You're going to see Bill and myself. We were doing this last night. We were testing everything out. We're going to be starting off in this virtual environment. And the last thing that I'll just mention here is these slides do include a lot of useful links at the end. So if you want to contact Bill, you can reach him at his email here. He also has a YouTube channel. There's a lot of great recordings. We have a YouTube channel as well. Acadicus does. And if you want to know more, if you want to learn more about these events in the future, you can sign up for our newsletter. And lastly, you can also join our community on Discord at the very bottom. This is we use Discord for building the connections between people who are using Acadicus and who are interested in using VR in different ways. So please join our community on Discord. It's an opportunity to meet other people who are working on this kind of stuff and potentially being able to collaborate with them. So that's it for my slides. Why don't we let's go. Well, John, why don't you introduce yourself first, then I'll introduce myself, and then introduce Bill, and then we'll just let Bill. We'll start the conversation with Bill at that point.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good. I'm John Bruchot, the founder and CEO of Arch Virtual, and we're the ones that are building the Acadicus platform.
Awesome. And again, my name is John Lester, or Pathfinder Lester, and I'm the Director of Community and Business Development, and actually have a background in healthcare. I worked at Massachusetts General Hospital creating online patient support communities. Before that, I was working in the neurology service. My interest is very much in creating collaborative communities and communities of best practices, ways of sharing knowledge and leveraging different tools for education, in particular environments where people are learning in groups where you're collaborating together. And Bill, why don't you introduce yourself?
As soon as I take myself off of mute. So I am Bill Ballo, and I've been a paramedic now for 24 years. I've been an EMS educator for going on 14, and then, educating in different realms. So American Heart Association, all those kind of places, I've worked for them. Currently, I am in the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning at Madison College in Madison, Wisconsin. I grew up in the state of Florida, but here in Madison, and just doing my best to develop VR for every program, not just for the medical programs. We've used them in the medical programs, but not just for the medical programs, but for every program.
Nice. So, Bill, could you share with us a little bit about sort of your journey to VR? Like, why did you start using VR in the first place and looking at it as a potential way to augment your teaching practice?
Sure. Yeah, I actually came into VR not really having ever put on a VR headset. So, I had seen VR, I think, back in the 90s when I was a kid, they had this thing in the mall where you could stand in it and you put on this headset. So I guess I actually did. You put on this headset and then you could shoot the aliens, right? And it was really cool and you could move around within this small area. But that was pretty much the extent of my VR knowledge. What I do is I try to find new and different ways to present information to my students, and that's it. All right. I just go, you know what? I've got this heart. I've got this plastic heart, and I want to show my students how to figure out on that plastic heart where exactly the heart attack is, right? Because there's the three main vessels that we like to talk about. And I go, well, I want to show them where this is on that. So I started off by taking that plastic heart, holding it underneath a doc cam, right? Because I had students that were attending from the class and from home. And I wound up holding it underneath the dock cam and then just going, okay, you see this line, right? And I had to keep moving it and it would get out of focus. And I was like, okay, hold on, wait, guys, just like, I'll move back this way. Okay, yep, you got it. Okay, now you see it, right? And so I had this plastic heart. And then, of course, we had the lab where we would have the students come in and we all dissect pig hearts. So we'd go to the butcher and we'd ask for, 20 odd pig hearts. And of course, they'd look at us funny, but then they'd give us, they'd give us or sell us the pig hearts. And then we'd all sit and dissect our own pig heart with scalpels and other sharp objects that sometimes is not the best thing for a bunch of my paramedic students to be holding and playing around with. And even me, it's probably not that good of an idea. I'm a paramedic. I'm bound to stab myself or cut myself or something like that. So what happened was one of the people that I was working with at Madison College, Carly Brady and Alan Natachu, two of the people that I was working with at Madison College, who had already helped me with some classroom live stuff that we were developing. Basically a classroom with cameras and the students can attend from home or from the classroom. Carly actually said, hey, I got this thing you got to take a look at, Bill. Let's go down to John's office. And so we actually went to John's office down in downtown and not too far from campus. And I walked in and, their typical VR setup, got all this stuff. He also had a keyboard in there, which I thought, hey, that's pretty cool. But so he's got, all this like VR stuff that's set up, headsets and computers and he's like, well, here, let's try it out. Let's try it out. Right. So we're talking about it. He's like, let's try it out. So I put the VR headset on, I walk in, I'm looking around and I'm seeing this commons area. And then, there's some pictures showing what they had. And then there's like an anatomy mannequin. And I'm like, okay, that's it. I'll take it right now. I could use this because my thing is I'll take the tool, I'll figure out exactly how to use it in my class and I'll expand it as much as humanly possible. And so that's what I did. I just said, hey, all right, yep. I looked at Carly, I looked at Alan, I said, how do we get it? How do we get it? I'm in, let's do it. And then it was only a couple months later that I actually taught my first lecture in virtual reality, put the VR headset on, I had both my students in the classroom and my students at home watching me hold a beating heart in my hand and, say, okay, yeah, remember when we talked about the left anterior descending? Here it is. Here's the LED. Look, there it is. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. All right. And everybody just thought it was amazing. And it has just exploded from there.
Cool. And then you've also done more than, there are different ways of leveraging what you do in a VR environment too, right? I mean, you can have other people in VR with you with the full 3D immersion, or you could have them watching you on a screen while you're in VR. Could you maybe talk a little bit how that learning works?
Yeah. So for me, it kind of started out as I was going to be the person going into VR, because I'm willing to work with the technology, troubleshoot, tinker, all the things that I needed to do in order to figure out how to make it work. So I sort of came up with this idea of like looking at it like a layered cake. Okay. So like that sort of bottom layer that I can get is I can get my students really nice, high quality videos that I can put on my YouTube site. And then my student can go and watch me on this YouTube site, holding up a heart and explaining all the parts of it, or pulling out a liver and explaining all the parts of it, or the kidney and explaining all the parts of it, right? They can watch that in that 2D environment. They can see what I'm doing. It's posted on my YouTube channel. My first VR lecture is actually posted on my YouTube channel. So they can look at it, right? They can see it. They can get a really good idea, but it's very similar to me taking a plastic heart and holding it up in front of my camera. It's very similar. It's good, and it's way better because the graphics are amazing, and I can all kinds of stuff, right? I don't have to have all of these mannequins stacked up here in my house. I can just, there's a heart. Oh, wait, hold on. We got a liver. Here's lungs, all that kind of stuff.
You could have a beating heart in your hand, which is kind of hard to do in the physical world.
Which I can't do with a plastic heart or a pig heart, right? I can't do that. So, so then the next step was sort of, all right, well, now I want my students to actually start to experience it a little bit. So can we do it live? And one of the ways to do it live was we use WebEx, but Zoom works as well. Is now I can do that lecture and have my students watching in WebEx or in Zoom and be doing it live so that they can ask questions. well, Bill, hey, what's that little thing that's going around the right side over there, or whatever, or the left side, or whatever? What is that? Okay, so now I can manipulate that, and I can get deeper into that, where my student can ask a direct question, I can give them a direct answer. And then I thought, no, okay, here's another layer. Got another layer. Next layer is, let's have the student come in and watch the 3D recording, because now instead of me determining what way the student watches it, the student gets to determine what way they watch it. And that's important. You don't necessarily think of that. It's a lot of times we'll sit back in a lecture hall or something like that and, watch and listen to the instructor. But how much better might it have been in some of my economics classes, right? Where I could walk up onto the stage and get a good close-up look of what the instructor was doing and go, oh, okay, all right. Or maybe even ask a question, right? And I'm actually like there. I feel like I'm more involved in the learning. And that was hugely important. And then sort of the icing on the cake, the big one, was to have the students come in with a headset on. Now, COVID made us make a little bit of a right turn on that one. But that's going to come back. Eventually, we're going to be able to put headsets on, and we're going to be able to get back into virtual reality the way that we really want to. But that was the icing on the cake. The student would now put the headset on, and instead of just experiencing it, now they're immersed in it. Now they're feeling it. Okay. And I'll tell you, like the dynamic cardiology room that we created, I can feel it. As a paramedic for 24 years, when I watch that mannequin go from normal skin temperature and condition to a pale skin, which I can't do with my plastic mannequins in the sim lab, I watch him go to a pale skin and I go, ooh, yeah, we need to do something about this guy, right? And that's that. I get that feeling again. That, and we even noticed, I mentioned it when we were practicing yesterday, I think it was, we even noticed that when I enter the room and I go to Miles, who is our guy in dynamic cardiology, I always go to the head. I always immediately go right up to the head, and I stand at the head and I look like this down at his head, because that's what I do as a paramedic. My job as a medic, when I would go into a cardiac arrest call or something like that, we all sort of had our things that we did. Mine was to go to the airway. My partner would go and start an IV, or my other partner would put an EKG on. Mine was to immediately go up to the airway and start getting all of this stuff out to prepare to intubate that patient. And I was doing that in virtual reality every time. And I didn't notice it initially, but then talking to the Johns in VR, I was like, guys, I just noticed I come to the head every single time. It's like, it's habit.
Yeah. It's interesting that there's a moment when it's real enough that the human brain just, it's all about completing patterns, and it just your brain treats it as real, and you start realizing, wow, my muscle memory is kicking in, even though I'm not standing, I'm not walking around or standing in the physical world. This is all happening virtually. The other interesting thing, for folks who aren't familiar with 3D recordings in Acadicus, as the recording is playing back, you have agency in the recording, so you can move around. If you're playing back a recording of Bill showing a model, you can be walking around in VR or moving around in VR as the recording is playing, so you could see it from multiple angles. You could pause it at any moment in time, but you could also, you have agency in the recording, so you're not just a passive viewer. It's like being on the holodeck in Star Trek, where you're playing back some scene and you're walking around in the holodeck while this thing is playing back. And it's really interesting too how Bill, you've looked at how to leverage these tools in multiple ways. It's not just a fully immersive VR environment. It's also a tool for people who want to be live in a video conference. And it's also a tool for just recorded videos for people to watch on YouTube. You can leverage these VR environments to create content that can be deployed in multiple ways to students in different ways over time, both live and recorded. So
yeah, and just to start off, even with that lecture, was for me was groundbreaking. It was great. I didn't have to keep finding all of the different mannequins. And then we have mannequins that are really tall. I can't put that under a document camera, So now I got to grab a webcam and pull the webcam over and go, okay, yeah, here, look at that, right? And now the webcam's moving. And so the student's kind of like, oh, you know,
Yeah.
whereas instead in VR, I can pick that item up, I can bring it right up to the camera and I can go, here, this is what I'm looking at. This is what it is. You
It's
know?
like having your own like sort of Hollywood set where
Yeah.
anything is possible, and you're like, yeah, we can do this thing here, and the viewer meanwhile is just going, wow, this is something that would be impossible to do in the physical world because of resource constraints and things like, the inability to have like a live organ in your hand doing its musculature doing its thing.
Yeah.
Things that just simply are not possible at all in
Well,
the
yeah, and I
physical world.
remember doing cadaver labs when I was in, anatomy and physiology, when I was even in paramedic school, when we were doing cadaver labs and stuff like that, where we're working on cadavers that had already been cut open, and
Hmm.
a lot of the things had already been taken out, and we can still pull those things out, we can still talk about them, and that is great too. And don't get me wrong, like it's not a replacement for every single thing that we do. Right. I mean, when I go in there to intubate, I grab the laryngoscope and I always put it in my left hand because that's the way it's done. Right. So I've got the laryngoscope in my left hand. If I let go of the laryngoscope, it stays. So there are some differences, but and that tactile feel, I don't have that tactile feel of actually getting in there. So there are some differences, but the thing is that it's a wonderful augment to what you're currently doing. And that's the thing I want people to understand too, is like there's some fear coming into this, like, oh, I'm gonna have to change everything that I do. No, you don't have to change everything you do. You come in with an idea and you say, this is what I'm thinking I would like to do, and then find out a way to flesh it out. And you can do it with developers. John helped me quite a bit. You can do it with other instructors, and you can say, well, how would you do this, how would you do that, right? And that's one of the things that I'm doing now at the college, is explaining how to use VR in all of these different areas of the college. Our DRS, our Disability Resource Services, they've even come to us now and said, well, wow, we could probably use that. Let's think about a way that we could use that to maybe help people understand better how to talk to people with disabilities and understand people with disabilities better. So it's even that it can even expand out that way. So yeah, the healthcare thing is obviously my main area of instruction, but I love to see it when people go, I think I can use it for this. I'm like, yep, let's go. Right.
Yeah. And I think the augmenting perspective is critical. So for example, we have people who have physical simulation labs. It's like, no, this isn't replacing your simulation lab. It's letting you do what you already do better. Because first of all, it's all about the expertise of your instructors, right? And your sim techs, right? How do you best leverage that when you've just got one mannequin in the physical world? What if you could make more? What if you could, it basically allows you to leverage, especially since Acadicus in particular very focused on leveraging instructor-led learning learning. You could leverage that what you're already doing, all the expertise, the scenarios that you've developed. It just lets you do more of what you're already doing,
Right.
without and also increasing your reach, right? Because you don't have to have people physically coming into a physical simulation lab or
And
meeting
you
in
don't have to
person.
rewrite a book. You don't have to
Yeah,
say, oh, I have to make all of these huge changes in what I do. No, absolutely not.
yeah,
Find something that you find it difficult to do, and then talk to someone who, in a catechist, talk to instructors and say, how could I do this within a virtual reality environment? And the chances are you probably can. You
yeah.
probably can,
Nice.
again, that tactile feel, right? If I'm intubating, I have a tough time with that tactile feel, but you know what my students weren't used to? They weren't used to just being in an operating room. And that was something I really couldn't simulate with them. I couldn't create an operating room in my sim lab and make them feel like they're in an operating room and understand where some of the things are and where people might be and all of that. Well, that's something I can do in VR. And I can
Mm,
even do it just, in a 3D recording that they can come in viewer mode and view. They don't
nice, nice,
they don't
nice.
necessarily have to put that headset on and come in.
Well,
Um,
speaking of headsets, let's put some headsets on.
do it.
You want
I'm
to do
in.
it?
Absolutely.
So what's going to happen
My
now
favorite
is
part.
Bill and I are going to log out of Zoom, and John, you're going to have to, John will wait a few minutes because Bill and I have to get in there, and it'll just take us a couple minutes, and John will engage and entertain you while Bill and I are plugging in. But I'm logging out of Zoom. Bill, I'll see you in our
I'll see you in my
special meeting
house.
room. I'll
It's
see you
my
in your
house now.
All right.
I'll see you in my house.
All right, so while we're waiting, I'll show you how you can get into Acadicus if you'd like. I'm going to share my screen here on a website. So at acadicus.com, right up at top, you've got a button, Install Acadicus for free. If you click on that, on the next page, you'll see where you can just type in your email address and download the installer. And there's also more information here. There's a quick start guide. We've got hardware requirements and some information about how to navigate, how to teleport, and how to get started with Acadicus. So that's free to download and explore, and you'll be able to come into the Acadicus Commons, where we have a bunch of different freely available simulation featured content and simulation that you can go and check out. And we're always adding more content. We have a shared content library that a lot of the schools and hospitals that we're working with are contributing various assets, equipment, environments to that library. So it's growing all the time. We're always adding new stuff. So come back and check that out frequently. And we've got a bunch of new featured lectures that we're going to be posting that Dr. Slayman, who was our guest on the last roundtable, has recently created. So those will be available as well through the Commons. So now I'm going to share a different screen, and I'll show you how you can get into the Commons. So once you have Acadicus installed, you can just launch it, and you can log in as a guest for free, and then get to this screen right here. This big button will get you to the Acadicus Commons, or you can enter a specific address. If you've been invited to join a private virtual sim lab or space, or you have your own space, you can type in a passcode here. So in just a few minutes, I will type in the passcode that we're going to be going to, just giving John and Bill a chance to get set up in there. We're going to be joining Bill in, he mentioned a few times when he was talking about the dynamic cardiology scene. So when I first met Bill, he had just such great energy and excitement about using this technology right from the beginning. And the first thing he wanted to do was create this dynamic cardiology scenario. And so we've been working with him and his subject matter expertise, and he's been testing it, refining it, and we just continued to add new content to it. And it's kind of an ongoing process. So every time we're using it, we realize there's one more thing we want to add. And then other schools or other hospitals or EMS programs will come and they want to add something or change something a little bit. And we're able to keep expanding it that way. So what you're going to be seeing is the first edition dynamic cardiology content, and we have it staged within the condo environment that we have in Acadicus. So it's a very modern residential condominium, and within that, we've staged this. We've placed the assets in the scene for this particular roundtable discussion. But one of the things you can do is you can move those things around. You could, instead of doing it in a residence, you could be in a downtown environment. You could be in an office space. We've got all kinds of different environments. And you can also add other assets. So if you want to add a stretcher to the scene, or you want to add a telephone, or whatever you want to add, you can add that to the scene when you're modifying or creating your simulation. So, well, I think we've given them enough time. I'm going to go ahead and jump in here. And we're going to be doing a 3D recording, like they mentioned. So when we go in, I'm going to open my menu and I'm going to start recording. And this is the first time we've done this with a roundtable like this. So if everything goes according to plan, we'll have a 3D recording at the end that you'll be able to, if you come into Acadicus, we're going to set up a room that you can come into and press play, and you'll be able to actually be in the room with this recording after it's been created. So that could be pretty interesting to try out. So here we go. So I'm in non-VR mode, and obviously Bill and John are going to be in VR mode. And what we have here is I'm going to be able to navigate using my mouse and my arrow keys. So basically what I can do is use my right click on my mouse to look around the scene. I'm going to try not to do that. Hey, Bill. Welcome, Bill. How's it going? Can you hear me? Oh, did I pick the wrong mic when I went to it? Hang on a second. I'll be right back. You would think I would know how to do this by now. I went in and I think I chose the wrong microphone. So we're going to go back in. And this time I'm going to choose the right mic. There we go. Said recording was paused there for a moment, so I hope that didn't stop the recording. So I'm going to share my screen again. I want to make sure that that recording is still going. Yes, it is. Good. All right.
Can you hear me, John?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. Awesome.
Excellent.
Awesome. I think Bill is coming back. He was checking some things with his microphone and his speakers.
Okay, that explains it. I was just, I noticed that he couldn't hear me, so I thought it might have been on my end.
No.
It was probably
it
good
was on his end.
because when I went out, I noticed that Zoom had paused our recording, so I was able to start that up again.
Okay, cool. So everything's recording good.
Yes.
All right, awesome. And I will. Well, this is this is. Let's see here. I'm out on the porch.
Oh yeah.
As you can see over here. Hey, how's it going? Let me let's see here.
And if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. I should be able to see those pop up on my side. So let me know if you have any questions for these guys as we go.
I'll come over here. And hello. Welcome to the living room here. So as you can see, I'm in VR mode. You can also see over the top of my head, little circle showing a picture of myself. You can put a little icon of yourself. And every time I'm talking, you'll see the yellow ring flash kind of above my head. That's just a visual cue. So it makes it easy for people to see, you know, who's talking if there's a crowd of people. The audio is spatialized, but it makes it a little easier to figure out who's talking at any particular time. Hey, Bill.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. It was on my end.
No problem.
So
this is the first time
night,
we've done this. It's all good. It's all good. Come over here near the couch. There you go.
Last night I updated the app and forgot to restart my computer. And of course now my I look nice and tall though. That's actually good. So
what do you do? Aren't you sitting down?
That's a good thing. I am actually sitting down, but my floor from Oculus has changed. So
I need to get higher here.
So now I feel nice and tall. I actually like this. So yeah, so there's actually, I was supposed to be in here sitting down, but of course
crouch down. Show them how it
there
looks.
you go, crouch.
You can crouch down. Yeah,
it's more of a sitting bill. So and there's a reason for that, and I'll explain that if that's okay. We'll get into that. So the reason for that is actually because I am still working with a broken foot. Woo, came real close there. I'm still working with a broken foot. Now this is a skeletal mannequin, and this is the mannequin's left foot. I always orient my students to where we're at. So left foot, right foot. That way, you know, while they're looking at it, they're understanding better. So I broke my foot. I was stepping off of my couch after getting something high off of the Christmas tree, and I rolled my left ankle inward like this. Okay, so it rolled inward, and when we're looking at the bones of the foot here, these are the phalanges out here. Okay, these are the metatarsals. These ones right here. These are the metatarsals, and then the tarsals back here. Anyway, this is the fifth metatarsal. Now this is your small, your pinky toe. Okay, and right here at the back of the fifth metatarsal, you can actually see there's a little piece. It kind of comes off, looks like a little, I don't know, like a little trapezoid kind of thing there.
Well, there's a tendon that comes down from your calf muscle, wraps around this part of your foot, and connects right here. And so when I rolled that tendon pulled really hard, and it snapped the back end of the metatarsal here, the back end of my fifth metatarsal, snapped it right off. Actually took it, pulled it about 4 millimeters back, and turned it upward so that it was facing up towards my face. So what the surgeons had to do was go in, open up my foot, take that piece of bone, put it back where it belonged, and then screw a screw into it so that it's now held to the metatarsal. So now there's
like a screw right here.
Correct. There is now a screw, and my son asked, "Is that thing going to stay in there forever?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's going to stay there." There's a screw in my foot, right here. It goes all the way in and kind of holds that bone together.
Wow.
So now I have hardware in my foot, which is kind of fun.
Well, that piece of hardware will be around longer than you will. You know, your skeleton.
Yeah, it will. Yeah, it will.
Turn to dust, and you'll still have this titanium screw.
That's it. So now you'll see me sort of manipulating the environment now by like hopping around rather than moving a lot, because I'm not standing up. I'm not able to. I'm still non-weight bearing for another week. So I have to sit here, but I can still manipulate all the stuff that's in here.
Yeah. And that's an important thing too. Like, some people think when you've got VR, you need to have some kind of a huge space to do it in. But most, everything that you can do in this environment, I could be walking around, like right now I'm walking around in the physical world. And of course, any movement that I'm doing is visible, but you can keep your feet sort of firmly planted and then just do, I call it hopping. You just hop your avatar around, and here I've moved over here and I didn't move my feet at all. So it's actually very intuitive once you start doing it, and it gives you a lot more flexibility. The same with with turning around. You can turn around in the physical world and lean around, and you have all those affordances. So I'm going to just kind of hop back over to here.
And here's that heart that I talked about. Ooh, got kind of close there. Here's that heart that I talked about. Now it's just going to block my face. But now, obviously, this is a much larger model of the first heart that I was using. You think it's bigger? This, if your heart were this big, you would be very sick. So this is much bigger than the first model that I started playing with. But I realized after a while that it was really nice to be able to show the students a seriously up close view of the heart, right? So I could point things out, like, for example, I could say here, I always teach my students TPMA to remember the valves of the heart. So tricuspid, right? So I go over here and I say, this is the T, this is the tricuspid, right? And then I go and I say, okay, that's the pulmonic valve, P, right there, okay? M, the mitral valve, right here. And then way up inside there is the aortic valve. It's sometimes a little hard to see, but that actually goes out through the aorta. And so I actually started telling my students, like, another instructor, an anatomy instructor at the college said, what they found, and he sent me a study. He said that this tricuspid valve, for about 35 or so %, I think it was, of the population, the tricuspid valve is not tricuspid. It doesn't have 3 cusps. And I went, whoa, that's amazing. So he actually kind of got me into the idea of calling this the right AV valve and the left AV valve. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Well, A for atria, V for ventricles. So there's your atria and there's your ventricles. And the thing that's, kind of hard sometimes for my students to remember is that it's your left, or patient's left and patient's right. So this is the left ventricle. This is the right ventricle over here. So there's a right ventricle, there's a left ventricle. And it's nice. Look, I mean, they can put it on themselves and go, oh, okay, left and right. Now I got it. And this is why this is left, and this is why this is right. And then the electrical system is even in here too. You can see all of the fibers in the network. For those of you that are anatomy instructors, like, you got your bundle branch. This is your bundle of his, and then it comes down. The left and the right bundle branch come off of here, and you've got your right bundle branch. I don't see I can really check too. the fascicles, so it doesn't show the fascicles, but that's something that you can get on these anatomy mannequins is like, well, wait a minute, I want to see the anterior fascicle and the posterior fascicle. All right, well, let's find a mannequin with an anterior and a posterior fascicle. So if you wanted to explain that, you could. Right? Pretty cool.
Yeah. And here's a larger than life model of a brain, which I get all excited about because
That's about the size of my brain. I don't know what you mean.
neurology. Hey. But it's wonderful because you can really get into, with the controls, you can point with your finger, like, check out, this is one of the optic nerves right here, and then you can see where the two nerves come together here, and you can see this and that. In particular, anything that's any anatomical model that's complex, you can create it in this environment, and it's when you're in with goggles, it's incredibly immersive. But even just watching a video of it, you can really get very very deep into these structures. It's really it's a lot of fun. Maybe we're going to show them the mannequin taking the organs.
Sure.
Can I put the brain on the coffee table? Is that okay?
Yeah, I think that's okay. I think
All
it
right.
probably will stain. Thanks. It's my coffee table. So, for example, right? So here we go. I've got an anatomical model that's all pieced out, right? So there's your left lung.
I got this one.
Right.
I got this
There's
lung.
left. You got the right lung. There's the right lung over there. You know. Right.
And we have
then
gravity is turned off too, by the way, too, and that's by default. It makes it a lot easier. So as soon as you let go of a model, it just stays. It just stays in wherever you've placed it. But
and that's kind of nice. That's something I can't do in the classroom, because as soon as I let that go, it drops. But so there's the heart, right? So good heart mannequin, good anatomical model of the heart. And I talked about, my students wanted to know, where's the LAD? Well, there it is, right there. There's the left anterior descending right there. Okay, and I can explain all of the pieces that are on the heart. There's the digestive system.
And you can hand things to another person. So I just handed him a digestive system. So there you go.
And this is why the people say, the way to a person's heart is through their stomach. That's actually kind of true, because the esophagus runs like right there behind it, like that. So there's your heart. We can put that back. Right, we got kidneys over here.
And this model, we were showing this to some folks who teach with physical models, and they loved this model too, because it's set up so that if you get the organs close enough, they just snap back into the model. So, when I grabbed I took this before you did, and you just drop it in there, and it actually just snaps back. So like reassembling things can be very quick, and you can customize them. We have some veterinary. People teaching veterinary medicine who are like, oh, can we do this for a horse? Yeah, sure. You could create an interactive model with either static organs, or like the beating heart over here. You can have an organ that's actually functioning as if it were alive.
And there's a muscle model that allows you to toggle the muscles on and off. So you can isolate specific muscles and groups, and you can toggle those on and off, and you can see the different muscle groups.
Nice,
right?
Nice.
So before we go on,
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Ben. Go ahead.
No problem. Go ahead, John.
I was just gonna say, before we go on, I'm gonna go ahead and create a recording segment here. So I started the recording in the beginning, and I'm gonna stop this recording now, and we're gonna start a new segment in a little bit. So we've got that recording started, and we're gonna start segment number 2 now.
Awesome.
Nice.
Well, welcome to segment number 2.
We need to remember to answer the question from Renata from Austria.
Yes, Renata from Austria had a great question, which is, I would love to integrate VR in my teaching. Which hints and recommendation and advice and links would you share with me? I'm teaching at a business vocational school, and my students are aged 14 to 20, and we have a VR Vive set at the school.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, what you've already got is, the first thing to do, and is to say, this is a lecture that I think would benefit from VR, right? So you're the subject matter expert, and you think about that subject matter, and you say, if I could only, and then blank, right? If I could do this in virtual and show my students this, right? And then don't be afraid to then try to make that happen almost exactly the way that you imagine it, but also be prepared, because one of the things that I found was when I started actually putting some of these things together in virtual reality, that there was a lot more that I could add to it. That I was like, oh, wait, I could put this on there. I could put that on there, right? And I actually needed some of the people from Arch Virtual to kind of help me out and go, okay, wait a minute, Bill, hold on. What exactly do we need so that we can make sure that we get that built in there? So don't be afraid to do it. Come up with that thought, and here's where I'm at, and this is what I want to do. And then when it comes to like what websites or what things could you share with me, that I'd actually probably default to Pathfinder and to John here, as to the best resources to help you get that actual lesson together.
Yeah.
Meet with John,
and-
meet with Pathfinder, meet with these guys. They'll help you out.
Well, the big thing for me is I always like to think about how everyone is smarter than anyone, right? So the trick is, I'm happy to give recommendations, but I also really encourage people to join the Discord group and just, ask a question there, because then, there are people in the Discord group that we have that are, all of us who work at Arch Virtual are there, all of the customers who are working with the Arch Virtual platform. The Acadicus platform are there, and it's a great place to get your questions answered.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. Don't be afraid to help to get other people involved.
Yeah. Great question.
We should go look at Miles too. And the other thing, on the camera too, you'll notice occasionally like there may be it looks like there's laser beams shooting out of your hands. That's just there's built-in laser pointers in this system, so it's very easy to say like, hey, let's go over there. Point to
right.
Point to Miles. I'm gonna hop over there too.
And I did it again. I did it again. Look, I came right to exactly where I normally come to. This is paramedic for me, right? So when I come on a scene and I have somebody that looks like Miles, who by the way looks pretty darn bad, the very first thing I'll do is I'll come in. I'm going to go straight to the airway, because I'm going to go, I probably need to give this guy some oxygen, right? I probably need to do some ventilations or something like that. I'm also going to keep my EKG usually pretty close to me. And when we were designing this room, interestingly enough, and I didn't know it even at the time, I didn't realize it even at the time, that I was designing this room pretty much the way that I would set things up on a scene, right? I'd come in and I'd say, all right, I'm going to put my EKG is usually over here to my left. I've got my BVM, I'm going to go and get ready to, potentially intubate him. Maybe I'm going to get my oxygen out of there. That's the weird thing about being extra tall, right? So I'm going to listen to his lung sounds, right? I'm going to get a partner over here and say, hey, let's get some vital signs on him. And because I can't move around quite as much, maybe I give that to my partner, and he's gonna get us some blood pressure, right? And then I'd say something like, yeah, let's go ahead and get the pads on him, because he does not look good. And looking at his EKG, although his pulse rate there is 80, he just does not look like he's got a pulse rate of 80. So my concern, obviously, is that there's something else going on with his heart, that and I don't want to get too much into the technical about cardiology, but there could be something going on where on the screen here it's showing that it's 80, whereas when you actually go down there, you take a pulse, turns out the guy's pulse is 40 or something worse, right? And then the other thing is that our sim tech on the background there, right? We've got our sim tech, and our sim tech can change all of the stuff that we're seeing here on the monitor.
Oh, John, that's actually a good time. Maybe you could open up the simulation manager on your screen so that they could see the view of a sim tech.
Yeah, great call. Yep, I've been showing them different options here. So we can trigger that dizziness animation, and every one of these simulation managers is a little different depending on what the patient's capabilities are. This one is obviously custom tailored to the dynamic cardiology scenario. So if we go over to the vital signs, like Bill just said, we've got different presets. We're adding a number of additional presets to expand this out, but we've got stable SVT. So if I wanted to change these, I could just change those right on the monitor. And those.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not good.
All right. So now, of course, I'm thinking to myself, all right, well, yep, we're probably going to want to do something about that, right? So the idea of the dynamic cardiology scenario was to simulate what we were doing in the sim lab, having a mannequin there, having the students, put the pads on the mannequin, looking at the monitor, making a decision as to what to do for the patient, and then doing it, right? All of the stuff that almost all of the stuff that you see in here is interactable. So, you know, the bags aren't going to move on you or anything like that, but the IV, the medications, obviously I've got my BVM, you know, there's
Paddles.
my stethoscope, I've got an oxygen bottle, I've got oxygen that I can actually put on the patient, right? And again, because I'm very tall, it might be a little hard to do, so I'll just hand that over to Pathfinder there.
Yeah, I'll get that.
Right.
Oh, I'm gonna take this off. Here we go.
Thank you. Thank you.
There we go.
Any of my old EMT partners would go, yeah, that's pretty much Bill. He'd just hand us stuff and ask us to put it on. So,
There we go.
And
yeah.
I can also do these things in non-VR mode as well. So in non-VR, if I click on this IV, we can start the IV and go ahead and put that on. And same with the pads.
Yeah.
So if I click on those pads,
there
I
it
can
goes.
just position those on there. So a lot of this functionality can be done in non-VR mode as well.
And I
for
think
you
that's
ACLS instructors, you know, that's to be able to say, yep, the pads are on, you know, and sometimes when we're in our ACLS scenarios, we're trying to move through relatively quickly, get everybody through. And so we're like, yeah, just imagine the pads are on. No, imagine. The pads get put on. They're either put on by you or they're put on by the student. So it gives that extra level of realism that's really important.
and also just be, you know, the fact that you're interacting with this environment in both VR mode and non-VR mode too. I mean, you're kind of having the best of both worlds. You know, you're
Sure.
still, it's not as immersive obviously as being with goggles on and handing, you know, moving things around with your hands. And I like, you know, I can just like take things from other people and hand things to other people.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
But you're welcome. But so you have the ability to leverage different users with different, you know, different platforms and for different teaching goals too. It's really
Absolutely
pretty flexible.
Absolutely.
You know, it's kind of interesting. What I could do is just show the recording. If I
Are
turn
there any
around right
live
now
questions?
and press
Do we
play,
have any live
Cool.
questions?
we can see that
So
recording
as you can
played
see,
back.
I'm in VR mode. You can also see over the top of my head, little circle showing a picture of myself. You can put a little icon of yourself. And every time I'm talking, you'll see the yellow ring.
So we can pause that. And that's actually us from earlier. So we just kind of went back in time there.
Yeah, that's where it blows my mind, because you're leveraging this instructor-led learning, but then you've got the ability to play back recordings in real time of everything that instructor did in the environment. You know, all of the you know, the technique. So you can basically like carefully study someone's technique, an instructor's technique, over and over. It's pretty wild. So we're not recording the 3D recording anymore, right?
Correct. We could start a third segment if we wanted to, but
well, do you want to maybe like, I mean, let's see, what's the time? It's 2 minutes past. Yeah, it's 2 minutes past. Maybe we could just, do we want to try go for broke and like load that outdoor scene?
Yeah,
and
let's
then
do
end
that.
there.
Yeah, let's do
Sure.
that.
Yeah,
so let's open up our scenes menu and load up.
And we'll let John do it too, so you can see as an instructor, John could change the scene that Bill and I are that we're all in right now, and just you're basically just loading a new environment into the holodeck, so to speak.
In fact, why don't we just go ahead? Yeah, so let's go to our scenes. Oops, my bad. Scenes and EMS demo, and we'll load. Here we go. So we're going to stay in the same room. We haven't left the room number that we first went into, but because it's kind of like a holodeck, we can turn this room into any kind of environment and scene that we want.
Ooh, here we go. Here we go. So this is not going to be part of the 3D recording, but you can get a sense of, you know, this is an outdoor environment. And here, I always love doing this. Let me see. I'm trying to. Here we go. You can see me up. Do you see me?
I do.
Do you see
yeah.
me? It's like, hey, Bill.
Careful
that
up
guy.
there.
That guy down there. Take care of him, man. Don't look
you're-
at me.
You're
Take
right
care
at
of
the
him.
edge and it's scaring me. He already fell and you look like you're coming next.
And,
For
and they-
safety training, though, it's so like this.
Yeah.
I feel unsettled up here. This is the way it should be, you know.
And the fun thing
Well,
about this one
imagine
is that
too, as an
LJB
instructor-
is a, oh, sorry, Bill. LJB
Nope.
is a customer of ours that has been using this for fall safety training. So they actually do fall safety training up on that rooftop. And sometimes some of the scenarios, if the harness isn't properly fitted or there's, you know, any kind of defects in the harness, they actually can fall down. And that's where the EMS scenario kicks in.
Yeah, yeah. I'll come back
Yeah,
down.
John brought me
There
into
we go.
this environment, was talking about fall safety, and I was like, did anybody call 911? And then it was kind of like, oh, and John's like, here, let me get an ambulance. Here, let me get the bag. Here, let me get this. And we're
I've got
putting
the
all this stuff
bag.
in, and we built a scene. Like, just out of the blue, we just built a scene, and
Here, I got my
it's an
bag.
outdoor scene, you know.
Yeah.
And for those of you that are disaster managers or paramedic instructors or something like that, imagine this scene now with patients strewn everywhere, and you're going to do a mass casualty or something like that, right?
Oh gosh,
There,
yeah.
imagine those kind of things that are possible in this type of environment that's just not necessarily possible in all of the other environments, right?
And you
And
could
I can even
you could record a whole mass casualty event also,
we could.
and have it all staged and have students go through it over and over.
Right.
And
Right,
it's,
absolutely.
And we do have a
Absolutely.
scene ready now that's a demo of multiple casualty that is
Oh, yeah.
complete. So we've got explosions, we have a severely injured patient, and we are looking,
Wow.
we're starting an alliance for that. So if anybody's watching that's interested in joining that alliance, we're looking for partners that want to join us in the creation of that. Obviously, that's a multifaceted, complex undertaking. So we're looking for other schools and other organizations to join us. But we've got a proof of concept demo with 3 different explosions. We've got ambulances with
Wow.
lights and sirens and ambient audio. And I got to say, the explosions are pretty fun to play with in here because you trigger those through your sim manager and you can place them anywhere in the scenes.
Oh wow, yeah.
It's really fun. So we're going to be loading a demo of that. It's all done now. So we're just going to be preparing that in a demo scene and putting that into the commons probably coming up next week or the week after that.
Nice. And so that's actually a really good point to end on, is the you can, if you go to acadicus.com, and you can download, you can get the software, and you can log in to what's called the Acadicus Commons. That's the sort of default environment that you jump into. And that's really a showcase for all of the shared content that we have. We have a shared content library of content that people can use freely when they, when they purchase the Acadicus platform. They have access to all this free content that they can put together in different ways. But you can anyone can log in and explore the content. So anyone can log into this Acadicus Commons and see on the walls, these little pictures of these different environments, and you can just go and explore them. We have, ranging from from the environments like that you've seen so far to larger scale environments, more, smaller clinical environments. We even have that landscape of Mars, just because of why not? Just an outdoor surface of Mars.
Yeah.
But you can explore.
That was part of another project that we were working on at Madison College with our botany department, which I think is really cool as well. And that's the thing. We've expanded
like
to
xenobotany
multiple
or something.
Yeah, yeah.
What is it called? Growing,
really neat.
how to grow plants in harsh environments or something, or alien
Right,
environments.
it turned understanding what different plants do into a scenario of what plants are you going to bring with you, and I mean, just really neat stuff that people have developed. And I can't say enough about what other people have developed besides what I've developed as well. But were there any questions? Did anybody have any questions, John?
They do. Yep. I was just going to jump in with that. There's a question from Ryan O'Meara. He asked if there was a code to enter the VR session. And that's a really good question. For this one, there was not. So we decided, because it was the first time we've ever done this live in VR, we kept it simple. But in future sessions, I think we could open it up to have people joining us. So that's a really
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And and also afterwards, we created these recordings. So we're going to create a scene that you'll be able to access through the Commons, where when you come in, you'll see one of those 3D recording holocrons to be able to press play, and then you can watch it as if you were actually here. So we're going to be posting that. There's another question, maybe I missed it, but what hardware are you using? And I believe, I don't want to speak for you, I think you guys are using Oculus Rift S at this point.
I'm on a Rift S, yes.
Yep. And
yeah, same here.
And right now we're compatible with Oculus Rift S, and our next update is going to be expanding compatibility to HP Reverb G2, HTC Vive, and a bunch of other headsets. We're really expanding compatibility with our next update, so stay tuned for that. And Gerald Stapleton, Jerry asks, could you create a scenario, record it, and then have the student work through the scenario and record what the student did for later review by the instructor? Great question, and you absolutely can.
Yep, absolutely.
that's my doing the next level of sort of debriefing, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's totally doable.
Right. Well, and that gives you that ability to have the student go in, do the work that they need to do, record what they've done, and then you as the instructor can come in later and check everything that they did. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, very cool.
I feel so
Very
tall.
cool.
I've never felt this tall in my
I don't,
entire life.
I was all prepped. I was prepped
Loving
for
it.
you to be sitting down, and
Yeah,
now you're taller than
yeah.
me, and you're
I know,
blowing
it's just-
my mind.
Whoops.
Yeah, I
Why?
did.
Another
okay.
question
This is
about.
the-
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I keep interrupting.
No, go. Ask
Quest 2,
questions,
Quest 2
please.
compatibility, Ryan asks. And yes, Acadicus does technically work with Quest 2 if it's connected to a Rift compatible PC with the link cable.
Yeah, it's got to have the cable plugged in.
Got to have the cable, but we've had some issues with the Quest 2. So there's a mic issue that happens with multiplayer apps when you're connected to a PC with the link cable. And it's just something with all multiplayer games through the link cable. There are ways to fix that though. So if you've got a Quest 2, you can definitely join us and come in if you've got a compatible PC, because we're focused on high fidelity. We're really trying to push the levels of realism that we've got. So we're really reliant on the graphics card in a PC at this point.
Yeah, I think that's one of the, there are two philosophies I always think about for Acadicus, and one of them is the shared content library, the ability for people to leverage content that other people have created and are sharing with everyone else. And the other one is fidelity, is realism. There's no, it's always, the decision is always like, well, make it real or less real. It's like, make it more real. And that drive, and that does drive some of the hardware requirements too. It's like, well, yeah, sort of a out of the box, earlier version of Quest, without a cable, that won't work, because it's not it. You need something more than the computational power of something that's basically essentially a phone's GPU on your face.
Right.
You need something a little more powerful. That said, there's so much advancement happening with completely wireless free devices. True. That the story is going to be completely different in a year, and in the meantime, there are all these other platforms that are coming out, like from HP and so forth, that you can leverage right away for very realistic looking recreations and simulations.
Yeah, and for me, the realism of the graphics was really the most important thing. So that was really that, and the ability to change the environment as I saw fit, because a lot of the stuff that that's like out of the box push button kind of thing, I can make some changes to it. I can't make a lot of changes to it. I can't specifically say, you know what, John, that bag that we have there, that needs to be blue, because airway bags are usually blue and trauma bags are usually red, or I specifically, actually, this bag came in red initially, and said, no, I don't think we got to have a blue one, because it's more likely that my airway bag is going to be blue. Right, or green. Some people have green airway bags, but blue, right? So I wanted a blue airway bag. Like, oh, okay, yep, we'll change it. That was that customization that we couldn't get from some of the other formats. We just couldn't. I could customize this really any way I wanted.
And also, when a customer logs in and goes into admin mode, they can rearrange things. They have a library of assets. They can say, I want to put this card over there, and there it is. Or I want to put a potted plant on the coffee table in that living room. There's a library of again the shared content library of assets, and you can just put it there. I was meeting with someone yesterday, and they were just like building out this whole like living room where there was going to be an accident happening, and I was like, wow, you've just sort of done all of this interior decorating completely on your own from free, freely shared content, and it's the focus is on the flexibility, the malleability of these environments, is what helps the instructors design exactly the environment that they need to teach whatever they're going to teach.
Yep, absolutely.
We have one last question. Chuck Hutchinson asks if we are going to be compatible with Mac anytime soon. And that is something that's on our roadmap. We're exploring that. It's a deceptively complex one for us based on the foundation, the building blocks that we have here, but it's not something that we haven't given up. We're going to keep working on that. We have it on the roadmap, and we bring it up and discuss it from time to time. So stay tuned. We'll keep that in mind, definitely.
Yeah. This whole the hardware is just getting faster and cheaper and more more accessible, less wires and things like that. I mean, the hardware landscape is going to be completely different a year from now with more advances. And, what we're building is, what can we leverage right now while, focusing on I'm in Montreal, so I live in Canada, so I have to use a hockey metaphor. So the trick is to skate to where the puck is going to be.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's there's a lot of support for existing platforms now, and then a lot of work we're putting into to develop for where the industry is going.
And that's another thing we didn't even talk about. So I didn't even realize, honestly, Pathfinder, that you are in Montreal. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Here I am in Madison, Wisconsin. John's in Madison. I brought this with me when I went down to Florida, which is where I'm originally from. I plugged in down in Florida, and I'm in the same environment, but I'm in Florida. You're in Montreal. John's back in Wisconsin. I think at one point John was out in California, but we're all still here together. And another thing, I just have to say this. Check it out. We don't have to social distance. We can shake hands. Nice to see you.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We are pandemic free in here right now, which is great.
Yeah. And that's huge for that's huge. It's huge if you're teaching teams to work together in a crisis situation. The sense of co-presence, the sense of I was really there with somebody. The nonverbal cues, like I see you nodding your head every once in a while,
right.
and that is a huge tool for building effective teams that can work together in crisis situations, can collaborate across disciplines.
And if I want to work with a former colleague from Florida, my former colleague from Florida sticks on a headset. I'm still in, but I lost my headset.
There we go.
Yeah, we've been in for quite a while, coming up on.
Yeah, I think my headset came unplugged. I pulled it, so sorry about that.
That's okay. You're still talking. We should wrap it up here because we thank you everyone for staying.
Appreciate it.
A little bit later. But this video recording, the video recording will be emailed to you if as a registered person, we've got your email, and there will be a 3D recording in Acadicus. In the email that we send out, we'll include a little bit of information to remind you how to find that 3D recording when it's ready as well. And thank you so much for. If you have additional questions we didn't answer, please submit them to us, and we'll be happy to get back to you.
Be very happy to answer it, and thank you again, and appreciate y'all coming.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Take care.